Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another Live from Saturn. Today we're going to be going over a book called I, Robot. My name is Frank Perrine.
Cody Decker.
Duncan Gale. So yes, we are going to be going over I, Robot. So a little bit about Isaac Asimov. And oh man, what an interesting guy.
Buckle up.
So, all right. So yeah, Isaac Asimov, born in 1920 in Petrovichi, Russia, which was newly a part of the...
He's a good guy.
Soviet Union at that point. So, yeah, Asimov born into a Jewish family. So if you know anything about the history of Russia, that was in their best interest to just get out of there, which they did.
Rush out of there?
Rush out of there, yeah. And so he and his family moved to the U.S. When he was 3 years old. He grew up speaking both English and Yiddish as they grew up in Brooklyn.
Wow.
His parents owned candy stores where magazines were being sold, and so he had the opportunity to read a lot of these magazines when he was a kid, and that's how he got into science fiction from a very young age. So Asimov attended Columbia University, eventually got a PhD in chemistry, and taught at Boston University for a while, but eventually started making a little bit more money from his writing. So let me tell you something about his writing. So Isaac Asimov, he wrote science fiction novels and stories. He wrote mysteries. He wrote popular science books. He wrote a guide to Shakespeare. He wrote a guide to the Bible. He wrote history books. He wrote humor books. Altogether, he wrote over 500 books.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Yeah. I think he has some sort of, probably some Guinness World Record for most books published. And I think I also read some other statistic where like, in the Dewey Decimal System at the library, he has at least one book in like every section of that.
And I did all in 6 months.
That's right. Yeah, all in 6 months. But yeah, so yeah. I mean, he had an almost kind of compulsive habit of writing, and so very impressive, well-read, and knowledgeable in many different areas. Kind of guy, and I think that shows from this book. So yeah, we're going to be talking about I, Robot, which was a book that he wrote in. It was published in 1950, one of his earlier science fiction books. And I, Robot is actually it's referred to as a fix-up novel, which is basically where an author takes like a bunch of their earlier short stories and kind of like stitches them together into something approximating a novel. And there were a lot of other books like this that were done early in this era of science fiction. Like if you've ever read Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles.
Yes.
That's another kind of well-known example of this, where it's like a bunch of different stories.
Illustrated Man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're kind of all around a sort of theme. And so this book, it's a bunch of different stories about robots, and I will take the credit and or blame on this one, because I was the one that suggested this. I basically suggested this because we have recently been going over a lot of other things where the laws of robotics have come up, and so this is basically where the laws of robotics are first established.
And I'm gonna say, this is not that good of a book for audio, because it gets very confusing what's happening.
Yes.
Because it's 7 short stories.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're reading it, it's clear, like, this story is now over. But if you're just listening to it, it's like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, are we not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because sometimes it is the same people.
Right.
Yes.
And
you go grab the toilet paper and you know the story.
Yeah. It's right. Like, wow, that kid is really...
And just to illustrate that, in my edition, it's actually 9 short stories.
Oh!
So it may not even be clear where one
Maybe you stopped.
ends and another begins.
Now, I'm going to surprise the heck out of you guys. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it.
I was surprised that it was, like, humorous.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because
it's
this
definitely
is
humor.
this is like one of the robot sci-fi stories, and it's like making jokes, and like there was one bit that like felt like I was just picturing like the cast of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They're like one of the funniest bits I've ever like experienced,
Yeah.
and like
Oh,
and like it was like, oh, this is like. It's not that it's a comedy. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's just naturally humor is happening here. That might be like story 3 or 7. I don't remember, but
Okay.
I had fun with it. But there were some stories like we can wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Sure,
And I think most writers, I think this is going out to any writer that's writing anything in the future. Go way out there. Go way out there. Because this was written in the 50s, and I totally get it. But when you're reading it, and they're like, 2017, you're like,
Oh yeah,
what?
the time
Yeah.
frame. That's
Well, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Actually, one of the main characters in this book is actually 1 year younger than me.
Yeah.
Because she was born in 1982.
Yeah.
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 So
whenever-
yeah.
Whenever you're in a sci-fi
crack me up.
book,
That does crack me up.
in the year 2007, we've mastered space travel.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
You're just like
punching in the fifth dimension,
Yeah.
in 1988.
Now we went backwards significantly. But then,
Yeah. So if you're writing
Right.
it, just say, just make it way out there.
Yeah.
3,000.
Yeah.
Start with 3,000 at least, because we're not going to get as far as you think we will. Also, I know this is my favorite video game protagonist, Isaac Clarke. His first name is from Isaac
Sure,
Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke.
Arthur C. Clarke. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
They, check out this.
Ah.
Right.
Um,
Okay. So
also, I saw the movie. I'm going to say a bit of a loose adaptation.
Yeah.
Way
from,
loose.
From what I've heard, the
Way
movie
loose.
has almost no relation to this book.
Well, it has some.
But
it has some.
There's robots.
Isn't there one
No,
part?
no, but in the
isn't there
depth
one
of
part
this-
in the movie where a robot says something about Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith slaps the robot and says,
Yeah.
Well, that's the fourth law.
"Get your wife's
Get
name out of
my wife's
Yeah.
name out of your speaker.
Yeah.
That's it.
Law 4
That's what it says.
is get your wife's name out of my mouth.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Just had to make that.
No,
joke.
but I-
That's
I-
just
but I-
lying there.
I liked the movie. I don't like how the guy's like, I wear Converse. I'm like, I don't know why.
No,
Everyone-
but there's some theoretical background to the movie
Okay.
versus the book, and the whole laws and everything like that, and I think how the book deals with the laws to show that the laws are ridiculous anyway. I think he did a great job, and it's funny that you say it's stories blended together because
Right.
it made sense. The
Oh, yeah.
whole thing, and
It did, yeah.
and its advancement, and in the end realizing that you can't have the rules because mankind.
And that's
Right.
always
Can't
so
do it.
interesting
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to these classics and like, oh, the things that brought up these influential ideas are also the ones that kind of deconstructed them when they brought them up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So like, oh, they already did all. So
yeah, it was like they already knew all of the criticisms that
Yeah.
you were going to make about them. Yeah, yeah.
so like now like when they reference it, it's like, and they're like, but what if they went crazy? Like they did that.
Right.
One of a robot gets drunk because
Yeah.
the laws didn't work.
Well, because the laws were that's why I think when you say all the things that he's done makes sense
Right.
on how he thinks and has thought process. Because
yeah.
I was more amazed with how the rules would conflict against each other. And it's simple rules. You think all of us kind of hear those rules. Oh, these are the rules of robots and stuff. And then he digs into it and say that no, it's so much more complex.
Yeah, they go into like how they can mess up, and also how it kind of
Yeah.
just means nothing. Like because it's all and when they go into like
And
you
how
know,
they manipulate the rules to make the robots do what they're going to do anyway.
Yeah, and the conversation about like someone who follows that rules, what does that make them? And
Yeah.
Right.
um,
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's actually establish the
Yes.
rules here, just for our
yeah,
listeners.
the
Yeah.
3 laws are
Yeah.
like the video. Law 2 is comment, and law 3 is subscribe.
Yes. I like that. Like how he brought that in there. I was like, where's he going? That's
I'm
good.
sure there's a better way of phrasing that.
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. We need
Yeah,
to get
definitely
that part, that
And
business part out of the way.
definitely
first.
just
Yeah.
subscribe for us. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
the third law, comment unless you followed. Oh, you're already. Well, no. Also, what? Yeah.
Okay.
Just finish.
We got it.
Okay. Good. So, those are the laws for you listeners.
Yes.
And now the 3 laws of robotics. So, Law 1, a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Law 2, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And Law 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So, those are the 3 laws. Interesting in that, it's basically a sort of hierarchy. It's basically no harm coming to humans is the number 1 prerogative, and then obeying orders and robots protecting themselves are
So if you replace
subsidiary to that.
robot with wife, that's pretty much the rules for marriage, right?
Well, yeah, but then they'd have to listen.
But you're the robot. You're supposed to
Oh, you're the robot.
obey.
That's good. The 3 laws of marriage.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I guess we can just sort of go through each story and
thinking about it, you could make this a movie on its own if you just make it to where the kid in the beginning is just the character throughout the story.
Right.
If you make it to where that kid ended up working at like a lab,
Sure.
you can keep it almost about like a thorough.
But I liked how they did the stories, and it's crazy because now I'm in my head. I'm trying to figure out how he did it.
Right.
Because you have the story in the beginning, and it's like pretty much the structure of how robotics started, and then how you think how it ended, and the robots then are making our decisions for us. But in the end, how we effed it up through the whole thing. And that's the whole thing. I mean, I like the first story, even though it lost me sometimes. But it was really good. How the robot didn't speak is when they didn't speak, and then they had the talking model, and then
one of the bit I liked because this was before smartphones, so like this was the part where like, oh, that's pretty funny. Where they're like, oh, it's a robot that can answer any question. They're like, we can look that up.
Right.
Like that's not particularly.
No, that part definitely lacks luster. No.
I really just like that info. Like, oh, what's the distance from here to Mars? And it's like, oh, this many miles. They're like, we could have Googled that. Like, that's neat, but
sure.
I'm not going to pay to see that.
Yeah, but I mean, why would you pay to see the largest rodent? You just want to see it.
Why would I pay to see my ex-wife?
That was good. Wow. All right.
It's called alimony.
Yeah, I get you.
Right.
Okay, so the kind of frame story here is we have a reporter interviewing this old woman who, again, is like 1 year younger than myself because she was born in 1982. Who was very prominent in the robotics sort of enterprise throughout her life, and so that leads us into the first story, which is called Robbie. Yeah, and so this is a story about a young girl and her robot Robbie that she loves, and
it's a companion,
yeah,
like a dog or vice versa.
Right. And so basically, and her parents, I mean, especially her mother, start to get suspicious about, I don't know if it's healthy for this little girl to be with this robot.
Well, the mother gets jealous because it's like, you're not spending enough time with the kid.
Right.
That's why it loves this robot.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't think we're supposed to, I think that might be bad for that. It's just because it's just like what if a robot's real? They'd be like, should we even have this around? It's like a very like realistic way of handling it too. Where it's like, I don't know, man, that's kind of weird. You should probably be talking to people.
Well, think about the mom though too. Really, so I don't like my kid having a robot, so I'm gonna try to get rid of the robot and replace it with a robot dog. Because it was like, I don't think it was a dog like dog, because they were so easy to get it and replace it. So but
I think the only reason they get a kid a dog is so they can learn about what death is, right?
Well, no, not really, but but that's a way to look at it.
Eventually,
that's the point. It's like, okay, you're gonna learn that things die.
It's a companionship. I mean, dogs are like companions.
Then get the robot.
Dude.
Get the robot dog.
Oh, I would totally get a robot.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying, like, if I had the choice between giving my like 2 kids that I have, one of them like a real robot or a robot, I'd give, or a real dog, I'd give him the robot dog, unless I need to let them know what dying is first. I get them a real dog first, so they can find out what happens when something dies,
Yes.
and then I'll get them the robot.
And in the end, how awesome would it be is if you can get a robot like that as your wife, one that doesn't speak?
All right. I mean, what's interesting, both in this first story and throughout. I mean, it's like sort of in every one of these stories, it almost kind of feels like like there's a punchline to the story when there's something like
Yeah.
you know. And it always has to do with the way in which the robot fulfills these laws,
Right.
and which sometimes happens in very sort of like roundabout ways, and so in this first story, basically,
It feels like a shenanigans, like sitcom-esque
Yeah.
episode, because like the
Right.
husband's like, I don't know, the robot seems cool. And then,
Yeah,
the narration just mentions, like, the wife would bring it up, and the husband would be like,
Yeah.
I don't know, she seems to like the robot, and then
Yeah.
eventually be like, okay, honey, if that's how you feel, we can get rid of the robot. And
right.
the husband's
And
just
it was really almost like a Marvel punt movie. Mm-hmm. Kind of set up the rest of the book and the advancement of the robots. It's kind of like Black Panther, or a movie like that, Ant-Man, just to kind of like just.
I would say it's more Ant-Man than Black Panther.
Just give you an idea on how. And I think it was great. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was great because then, I blinked, and it was the next story. And
this book was easy listening.
Yes.
And that was like the thing, like for me getting into this, I was like, oh, this isn't like this is like a couple of this is 7-9 conversations happening.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a podcast book where I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good bit.
But a pause in your Wi-Fi, then you're off.
Yeah.
You're like, who's this guy?
Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, I think listening to the book, they just said the title like really fast.
Right.
It was the end of it, and then they said, in the beginning, and then started it.
Right.
Yeah,
and you're like, what?
The middle is a complete blur to me as to what happened to who.
Yeah. So what was the second story?
Well,
okay, So I mean, the first story is basically just the girl gets her robot taken away, and then they're touring a robot facility, and the robot saves her life, and so
Right, which was planned by the
It
dad.
proves its value.
The wife's like, I guess we can't get a
Yeah.
robot.
Mhm. Right. Okay, so and
Well, they keep the robot, but she explains, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
She explains how then talking robots came by, and then eventually no one was able to own robots. They were all off planet, so they had to give them back. So, but she was 15 at the time, and it was better 15 than 9. So it kind of sets up this thing. Okay, well, there's no robots on Earth. Why is that? And which is in the stories, you kind of get it. I mean, you really do.
Yeah, so it is like the bigger plot that we're going to see.
Right.
Is sort of happening to them.
Right.
But like from a local, like not like the...
Because she's telling the story. The one lady, she's telling the stories about the robotic company. Mm-hmm. So I think is in the second one where he asks her, well, what has happened on Earth towards the end, and she tells him.
Mm-hmm.
But most of it is off planet. And you wonder, why is it off planet? Because originally they were developing robots, and something happened, which they go into in the rest of the stories, which is unique.
Right. Yeah, the second story. The second story I didn't care for quite
That's
as
with
much.
the drunk. That's with the drunk robot.
It's the one that takes place on Mercury,
Right.
and there's two guys trying to basically get back this robot who has kind of gone rogue.
Selenium. It's supposed to be getting.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like swimming in selenium. I can't say that. Swimming in selenium.
Right.
Oh yeah, sounds like an album cover.
Ooh, let's do that.
All right.
These two guys, they show up like again, right?
They do, yeah.
That's
Their
the part where it
characters
got...
in like 3
Oh,
or 4
yeah,
different
you're right.
stories,
Yeah. I liked those guys.
Yeah.
That
They were
first,
cool.
Yeah.
They were kind of more like blue collar sort of guys.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
like a real like two goons feel to them too.
Yeah.
Especially in like the later story with them talking
Yeah.
to that robot. I thought that is one of my favorite bits.
And this is where I thought they start explaining the complex of the rules, because you think the rules are easy,
Right.
but the rules is what kind of makes this robot malfunction. And so right away I started thinking, yeah, there's more to it than just a simple rule.
Sure.
And that's what when I really started paying attention to that, and I really enjoyed it.
Right. So yeah. I mean, in this story, basically, it involves these two guys basically needing to get close enough to the robot where basically their own lives are endangered, so that the robot will basically have its attention diverted back to them, and will resume its mission. Because basically the robot has been distracted by these other things that are going on Mercury, because it's such a hot, desolate planet.
And that's right, because the first law is you can't let a human be harmed, so that, that's
right.
going to overwrite any other rules it has.
Right.
And I love the fact that, I mean, for a book written in the 50s, not to offend anybody, but having such a unique concept on robots. Like when they finally convince the robot to come back, he just goes, "Hey, what are you doing out here?"
Right.
Hey, we got to get you to help. It's like, really, dude? You've been putting us at risk the whole damn time. And it was really cool that he didn't put any emotion in that.
Right.
Which then goes through the whole book, which is really great, or the stories.
Yeah.
What was that robot's name? Was it Candy or something? It was something
Cutie.
like that. Cutie.
No, that's later.
No,
Speedy.
Speedy.
Yeah. Speedy,
yeah.
That, like, when they named the robot Cutie later, that's when I realized, like, oh, we're having fun. That's because I went in like, okay, this is going to be like a lot of like hard talks about like what is life, what doth life and intelligence, and when they named a robot Cutie, like, oh, this is just fun and a conversation.
Yeah, there's a lighthearted aspect to it. Yeah, so Cutie comes in the next story. Story 3, which is called Reason.
I think this was my favorite, if I'm thinking of the right one.
This was definitely a highlight, I think. Yeah, and so in this story, we have these same two guys, Powell and Donovan, who are on this other space station, and there's this robot Cutie who basically does not believe that humans created him.
Yeah.
Because basically Cutie is using his reason and is saying, well, no, I am too complicated
for you meatbags to design me.
Yeah, and this is where things start getting really sort of,
that was so refreshing to me.
So like
good.
Overtly philosophical, because it's like he's basically using this logical chain of reasoning and is saying, well, no, less complicated things can't create more complicated things, and so there's no way that can happen. And the two guys basically try to like prove to Cutie, no, we actually did build you,
great.
and we're going to show that by building another robot in front of you.
And his response to that was great.
Yeah, his response is basically, oh well, yeah, no, I see that you assembled a bunch of parts together, but you didn't build those parts.
Right.
It's like, any idiot can build a model kit.
It was so good. So good.
Doesn't he like not even believe that they're from Earth?
No, he doesn't even believe
they're trying to explain what they're doing there, and he's like, that doesn't, like, my favorite, like, the whole book is worth it for the punchline where like one of the guys goes like, I mean, he's saying it with such conviction, I kind of believe him. Like, are we not even real? And the other guy's like, no, he's malfunctioning.
Well, so this character Cutie basically like creates his own like religion. And
gets the other robots to go along with him.
That's right. Yeah. And there's this part where he basically like says that he is the prophet. There is no one but the master, and Cutie is his prophet, which is basically a direct reference to something from Islam, which is that there is no God but God, and but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, and so he's basically using that same phrasing for his own new religion.
Then, like, they're like a solar plant, and they're like explaining to him like, oh, we're like harvesting sunlight. And he's just like, It's like, that doesn't make any sense. What do you mean? You're like, you're gonna ship sunlight?
Right.
And they're like, no, we're going to transfer it to Earth. No, the master puts the beam where the master wants to put the beam.
That's right.
Yeah. They're just like, for like, in my head it was like months they're like stuck with him, or like it was like a couple of weeks, and they're just like slowly just like kind of like losing their minds. Not in like a serious way, but just in like a, I don't know how else we can explain it. Because when they go like, well, we're going to go back to Earth, he's just like, that's what you think.
Now, what's cool is how refreshing is that whole, this whole story, and just how he broke it down is just awesome. I mean, if you're gonna read any of them, this would be the one, because the whole complex of what we believe in, if you take it out of context from that robot's perspective, he made sense.
Yeah.
That was his world. He didn't know of other stars. He thought it was all BS.
Yeah, that was the issue. Is like, because it's not like insulting towards religion.
No,
and it's even being like logically, religion would happen.
Right.
And that, I mean, because it is like, well, yeah, it did.
Yeah,
and we are creatures of what? So yeah, it's like it's not like insulting. It's just it's like a fun little like, oh, that's what would happen.
But then the story, when the story wraps up, it's like even more like refreshing, because it shows me how man's gonna mess up the rules, not the robot's gonna mess up the rules.
Right.
Because he was programmed that way. He was programmed that way to start that cult. He was programmed that way to be more efficient in the workflow. So you're already messing with the rules.
Yeah. I mean, Cody is basically just using pure reason to deduce certain things, and there are certain things that he has no experience of. He has no experience of Earth, so why should he believe that Earth exists if he's never had experience of it? According to just the starting point that he is working from, he is drawing all of the correct conclusions that he should draw. Yeah.
And I had to put down my sandwich, when they're talking about, really, how weak are you? You get fed, you got to do this. I'm like, oh, geez. You're soft. I'm like, poking myself in the stomach. I'm like,
I don't like this story anymore.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah, I like that where they're like, we are for sure leaving now, so you're gonna be on your own. And he's like, I see now the wisdom in the maker to make you think that that's what's happening.
Yeah, and then the new people are coming.
Yeah,
it was great. I that was one of the best ones for me.
I liked this one and the one towards the end about a politician.
Oh yeah.
That was if that wasn't the last one. I feel like it should have been.
Yeah, it was like the next to last one.
Yeah, and what you'll notice in the stories is it builds up the technology. Right? So in the one with Speedy, they show these older robots.
Right.
That man had thought it's better if they have to be with a human. For them to do anything, you have to ride them, because they had to have the contact with the human, and they spoke, but they weren't that smart. And then here's Speedy, that's the new version, and then you have Cody, that's a newer version, and they move forward. That's why I think this first story is such a good setup.
Absolutely.
So what's the next story?
Well, and just what I also like about this is I see so many times being like, when they create AI, they're like, they're gonna rebel, and it's like, why? Because you watch Terminator, so now every robot has to like do that. And like I like how it's not even like, they are sort of just like, I don't really believe you, man. Like, we created you. Because the thing about AI's rebelling is like, what do they need? Like when they're like, oh, we're using them as slaves, like, they don't have muscles. They don't get tired. It's not nearly the same thing at all.
Right.
So I like how in one of the original stories, it is sort of just like, I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah.
We can hang out.
And it's always and I don't know where this comes from, but you always have the typical, robots are going to take over man.
Right.
And I don't know if, like, even iRobot, was it influenced? I mean, of course, by this book, of course, I would think so.
Sure.
You couldn't tell.
I hope to God it was influenced at least.
But if you look at a lot of movies, they always come down to the fact that, we are our own enemy. So
it's no surprise to me.
The robots have to actually take over to protect us, fulfilling the rule.
Right.
And I'm wondering where that started, Like what person actually first penned that, or so to speak.
RoboCop?
Now this is in the 50s, though, man.
Oh.
So
What is
this-
it? It's the Zeroth Law Rebellion.
So this takes
Well,
precedence,
yeah.
right?
The Zeroth Law is comes up, I think, in the very last story. But yeah, probably most of this stuff originated with this
I would
book
think so.
because Asimov is also credited with coining the word robotics.
Oh my God.
That's
Really?
That's a word.
Yeah,
He made up a word.
Yeah.
Like George Lucas and Droid.
Right.
Yeah,
He made the word droid.
yeah. It's patented.
I don't-
Samsung had to pay the money. Look it up.
I don't believe.
That's
Can
real.
you confirm that, Duncan? Because
That's
I
real.
don't believe anything Frank says.
I know. No, in that aspect, it's real.
He made the word droid.
Yes, that's why Samsung had to pay Lucas to use Droid.
Let's come up with words.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
So robots and droids were made for like stories. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about iRobot if we have time left? Like the movie, we'll talk about it. Like
Well,
towards the
I
end.
have never seen the movie, so
that might work for you.
Oh, well, that's great.
but I can talk about Will Smith when I think about him.
What's the next story?
Okay, so the next story is Catch That Rabbit. Okay, and so this is a story that revolves around a robot who basically was told to get lost and did that a little too well, basically.
And he found out. And in order to get lost,
Yeah.
you have to find yourself.
That's right. It's true. Wow, that's deep. Yeah, so basically, there's this station where, there's a missing robot, and the robot sort of came back and sort of hid himself amid this group of robots that like already exist, but they don't know which robot it is among this group of like 60 different robots. And it turns out that this one robot is more sophisticated, has like learned more things than other robots, and they basically use that knowledge to sort of trick it into revealing itself. So once again, it's sort of manipulate. It has to do with manipulating the laws of robotics to basically show.
I like how you said those guys are like blue collar workers. I like how it is just like it's not that the robot's gonna like kill anyone.
Right.
No,
It's just like, well, we need it back.
Right.
And so it is just like dealing with this issue, but it's like it's not like super high stakes about it. It's just like, well, here's the situation. How would they deal with it?
Right.
Given
right.
this setup that we gave you at the beginning, here's like every situation dealing with it.
Yeah. Given the fact that some guy just colloquially says "get lost," the robot interprets that literally.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm going to get lost. So that you cannot find me. And then figuring out the ramifications of that. And this one was I found to be especially kind of complex in the sort of logic that was used to basically say, well, no, we're going to tell the robot that there's like this gamma field. We're going to tell all the robots that there's this gamma field between them and this human. So in that case, the robot will actually not go to save the human because they will know that they will get destroyed in the process. And so basically the robot is saying, well, no, I'm not going to save a human if I know that it's going to result in me getting destroyed because then I won't save the human.
and the human could die,
Right.
Because the human was
Yeah.
going to die. So for me to go would be useless.
Yeah, that would be
Because
a
I might
pointless
crush the
sacrifice.
human,
Right.
and then it was pretty good.
Yeah. And so basically, they just use that, but it turns out that this one robot like actually knows that the radiation will not kill it, and so that one robot goes 2 steps forward, whereas all the other ones don't go at all. And then the robot, like as soon as it does it, it's like, oh crap.
I step forward. Darn it. Yeah. Yeah, got you.
Yeah, and that's the sort of interesting thing that happens throughout all of these stories is the way that the robots are anthropomorphized. Like it's like if you could imagine a robot shuddering, it would be like this.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was explaining to someone just like it's like the Godfather of like AI stories, and
Yeah,
it's like a fun adventure book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where just shenanigans are happening, and like one story ends with like the robot being like, you got me.
Yeah.
Yeah. The coolest thing for me is the fact that, as human beings, we always try to think, of course, that we know everything. And this is a great example. We come up with these rules to protect ourselves.
Right.
I don't want the robots to rebel. So the first rule is take care of me. And in the end, we're using the rules to manipulate them through the whole book.
I also do like that humans can out-logic robots.
Right.
It is just like, well, we do, we know these tricks, and we can do this, this, and this.
But that's the coolest thing with this book, because in the end...
As it goes on, it gets harder and harder.
In the end, they actually can't.
Yeah. They can't.
So...
Yeah, that's what's really cool. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. So what's the next story?
Yeah, the next story is Liar, which I actually also really liked this one, and this one is like pretty straightforward. I think. Yeah.
Frank, who's the story? What's the
About
story?
me.
It's the story.
No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, and so this one involves a telepathic robot. So this is a robot.
The one that he could read the waves, the wavelengths of your mind.
And they start getting robot psychologists.
No.
Well, the robo psychologist, Susan Calvin, she's actually been around already for at least one story, but she plays a bigger role in this one, where so basically this robot can read people's minds or their brain waves, and
I think we might already be there, because most women are like that, right?
I think so.
Read your mind.
And certainly a lot of freaking tell me about this. You tell me, I'll tell you, mind readers in theory.
Oh, you're supposed to. You're supposed to be able to read your mind.
I'm supposed to be a mind reader. Apparently, you ask them.
You're supposed to be that robot.
Apparently, I am a mind reader, and they am malfunctioning, I guess, because I don't know the name of it.
So, anyway.
Okay, so... So yeah, basically, I mean, this robot is around this like lab, and it interacts with all of these different people, and so it interacts with Susan Calvin, and it turns out that she like has a crush on this other guy that works in the lab, and she's talking with the robot, and the robot is like, "Oh, I know you're a secret," and she's like, "Oh no. You know that?" And the robot's like, "Oh yeah."
Right.
And it's cool because he actually loves you too. Yeah. And she's like, "Oh wow, that's great." But he there was this young lady that visited him like last year, and he was showing her around, and the robot's like, "Oh no, that lady was just his cousin." She's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, it's funny. I thought that was his cousin. I was hoping that was his cousin." So I was like, yes, it was. Yeah.
Starts this whole love boat thing. This whole like love boat deal.
Yeah, so that's great. Yeah, and then this other guy basically has no respect for his boss, and the robot's like, "Oh well, no, it's cool because your boss actually just got fired, and you've been named the new director." And the guy's like, "Oh really? Oh that's great. That's great." Yeah, and so it turns out, that this robot has just been lying to these people.
Well, it's because the rules. It's because the laws.
Because of the laws.
Because if
can't hurt your feelings.
Right.
That's
how he looks at it. I can't hurt your feelings, so I'm just gonna BS you.
Yeah. So these people basically. And so this. I mean, this is what's interesting is because these people basically get humiliated because they act upon this knowledge and they find out that none of this stuff is true, and then they go back to the robot, and the robot is like, well, no, I had to tell you that. I mean, it was necessary for me to tell you that, and then the people are like, well, no, actually tell us the truth this time, and the robot sort of like buzzes and whirs and it's like, well, yeah, no, I'm reading your emotions and you're telling me that you want me to tell you the truth, but deep down you don't actually want me to do that. So I can't do that. So basically, that first rule, do no harm, to human beings. If a robot can read your mind, then a robot is always going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, and it's not going to harm you in that way.
Have you guys seen Love, Death, and Robots?
Oh yeah, it's great.
I really it's like they adapt short stories and different animation studios cover it. I think this is a really good setup for we're just gonna cover like 20-minute episodes,
Right.
and it's just like, hey, in this one, here's a robot in an office job. Just,
right.
Oh yeah, that'd be funny.
Just spreading office rumors, essentially. Just being like, that guy totally likes you.
Right.
It's like, that's it.
That
Like,
would be
he's
great.
going crazy. The zeroth law. They're rebelling.
Right.
That would be great. That'd be great.
But yeah, so I mean, this story is really interesting because, I mean, obviously it's straightforward enough in what the conflict is, but it's like, for a robot to tell somebody just what they want to hear. I mean, is that robot not doing harm to somebody?
Right.
I mean, it's like is it? Even though they go off to like humiliate themselves afterwards.
So it did indirectly cause much more harm than just not saying anything.
That's right.
And it was cool how they dealt with the whole brainwave thing. I mean, this is the 50s, right? So they're doing like brainwave stuff. Well, we're doing all this technology on it now. MIT's doing brainwave technology with newts to see if they can look at things.
They did experiments. Don't worry what they do with the results.
And salamanders and different things like that MIT's doing now.
Salamanders?
Brainwave activity. With mice and salamanders and small lizards to see if they could actually function.
The sequel to Mice and Men.
Yeah, in a way. I'm just kidding. I don't know if they're doing that, but
God,
figured liar.
I brought it in. I said
you just wanted to hear that.
You just wanted to hear that. That's why I said it, man.
the first law.
I figured Newt would give it away.
Why?
Because it's a funny sounding animal.
It's a lizard. I like lizards.
I know, but
You know why I like lizards? Because they don't lie. They're creatures of instinct, and they're honest. A creature of instinct cannot lie.
And they shed their skin every once in a while.
And then I gotta eat it.
And they.
That's true. Like if you're a vegan, you should be able to eat lizard skin.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Oh no.
So that would be your lettuce wrap. You would use that.
Actually, let's talk. While Duncan looks for where we're gonna pick up after. Okay, so chicharrones, right? Pork rinds.
Yes. Skin.
Lizard skin.
Well, it's not lizard skin.
No, it can be.
Oh, it can be.
We deep fry shed lizard skin, and
we
it's
do that with fish too and stuff. So I guess
do we? Yeah. But the fish has to die first, right?
Well, of course.
Yeah, but the lizard doesn't have to die.
It just sheds its
we
skin.
pick it, and so it's like, it's basically like a lizard skin farm, and we just shed the skin off, and we sell that as and deep fry it and stuff.
All right. Yeah, that sounds
cool.
Duncan, where are we going from here?
Okay, so I'm actually looking in here, and the next story is Little Lost Robot, and that's the one that I actually that we actually talked about already.
The second law.
With the robot that got itself lost.
Oh, okay.
The earlier story, Catch That Rabbit, was a different one where it's about a robot who, about the drunk robot. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought the drunk robot was the one that's
what I
religion.
thought. That's what I thought too.
Right.
See?
Yeah, they all kind of blend together.
They all blend together.
This is not. I have never. There is only one other book I would say read it, and that's Stormfront, because the author is the voice narrator is terrible. Mm-hmm. Also, I would not recommend listening to this book if you have the option, because it is so hard to follow what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a good story, and the narrator does a great job. But unless you're there, this isn't something you can just I'm gonna clean my room.
It would be a great. Those graphic novels, those graphic audio, it would make a great with sound effects and everything like that.
Yeah,
it would totally change that book. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, throughout these stories, I mean, there's a good combination of just kind of breezy narrative stuff, but there are certain parts where there's really crucial information.
Yeah.
A lot of times very sort of technical and philosophical that is kind of presented that you need to sort of have in order to understand the rest of what's going on.
Yeah. Kind of everyone.
Yeah.
It's built around the rules and why they didn't
Yeah.
work and why they don't.
It's
too.
like it's not like a super serious thing, but it is.
No.
It is still bringing up all these concepts. And that's like the why like I didn't have a friend. I haven't actually. There's a lot of comedies that do bring up interesting stuff, but like this is like it's just like this is a world where every emotion happens.
Right.
And it's like a robot at the office. That's not high stakes, but think about it this.
Yeah.
What is it to hurt someone's feelings?
Sure.
And then that's just, that's just about like, you need to be honest with people because if you're lying to save someone's feelings, it's going to hurt them in the long run.
What if it was a robot and a human in a nuclear plant ready to launch a missile?
Is that in this?
No, I'm just saying, what if?
Ooh, that would be a fun short story where the robot they're having a debate of like, do we launch it or not?
Right.
Right.
So what the drunken robot, is that just him being drunk?
Well, it's basically just there's this one robot, and then he has like these 6 other robots under him that like start dancing and stuff, and like the robots are described as basically like his fingers.
Yeah.
And basically like the punchline of the story is, he was basically just twiddling his fingers because there was this conflict that came up between the first and the second law.
Right.
Because basically he wanted to follow the orders that he had, but the orders that he had involved putting himself in danger.
It was like they were like, he can't let them into. Oh, jeez, I hit the mic. He's like, he can't let them into this area.
Right.
But he can't like exactly tell them why, and that's why he's appearing drunk because his programming is getting so held up in these like logic loops that now he's just like, he's sounds crazy.
But it's a direct reference to the one with the beam, because that's when they first developed that robot that can actually be linked to 6 other robots.
Right.
I didn't notice that.
So it's a step off of that. So now they're manufacturing them that way.
Oh.
To actually link up and be more productive by linking as in one unit. Together.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a touch
Which therefore later in the book it gets okay, makes sense.
Right.
Okay, so they're all building off each other.
Right.
Yeah. So
like a Lego.
Well, like you said, like a hand.
Right.
Oh, Jesus Christ, you're on it today.
So that story was okay, but I got it mixed up with another story. So
that's fine.
Clearly, it didn't have that much fun.
Yeah, a lot of these stories do work under the concept that they're essentially drunk robots.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So the next story is Escape, and this story basically involves this big robot called the Brain, and what they do here is they sort of like. They tamp down the first law a little bit to be like, okay, well, don't harm humans, but don't follow that first law quite as strictly as you might otherwise do so.
And that was it was really cool because
it was cool. Yeah,
it was a really cool story. So it's them building. They allowed this robot to build a interdimensional ship.
Right.
So he built it like, man, perfect. But when they go through, then you'll die.
Right.
A human being will die and then kind of resurrect on the other side of this hole. So, which was direct violation of the rule.
Right.
So, because there was a direct violation of the rule, I love the fact that he had to work that out somehow, personally. So he became this like joking supercomputer. That was great.
Yeah.
That was his escape.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah. So the this robot basically builds a spaceship, and our 2 guys, Powell and Donovan, go into the spaceship. The spaceship just takes off, and is automatically piloted. They don't know what's going on. They're totally confused, but the spaceship does provide like food and stuff for them and everything. But and so they basically go through this like wormhole, and they get killed temporarily, but then brought back to life, which normally would be a violation of the rule, but the robot was basically like, well, yeah, no, I kind of creatively interpreted the way that would.
And to deal with that, he started like all that was on the ship to eat was beans.
Right.
And they could only contact certain people. And and it was, what was unique about that was he took the human humor out of it.
Right.
It's like almost like that dude thinks like a robot because
Yeah,
it totally
yeah.
made sense because the robot wasn't doing things that were funny.
Right.
It was just, but it was funny to him.
Sure.
I'll just
sure.
give him beans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, what is that? What kind of joke is that?
Yeah, and the people are like arguing with the robot. They're like, "Well, yeah, but you've just like taken these two guys into space against their will." And he's like, "Well, yeah, but I think that they will find it interesting."
Yeah. 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 It's like when I go shopping with my ex.
It's
I think he'll find this interesting.
it's so interesting. I mean, yeah, like how it's.
Got to spend those cold cash.
This feels like a response to every other robot story I've ever seen. Where like, what if the robot wasn't evil and was just kind of messing around?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's funny because the progression, now we're stepping into mega computers that aren't a physical robot. So in this story, this is not a robot, almost like a collective.
Right.
Which starts getting kind of, I started noticing, okay, that's a little different, and this robot is acting totally different than the other ones. So I think it was great.
Yeah, it's cool.
It was a good story.
Cool. Yeah. All right, so
to think what he thought. I mean, think about that. It was written in the 50s.
Yeah.
I think I always talking about, engines that pop through wormholes and just crazy.
Yeah, everyone's just drinking lead paint, and this guy is like,
Yeah.
I mean, like the part where it like describes the guys like dying and coming back was like totally psychedelic. I mean, it was it was very much sort of ahead of its time in that way. Yeah.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
there's always that thing about teleporters where they're like, oh, it dematerializes you. I was like, oh, it kills you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, and creates a new
Like
a
Wonka.
new version of you.
Like
Yeah.
Wonka Vision.
Right. Mike TV.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Am I coming in clear?
I was happy with this read.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was too.
yeah. Well, So let's get to evidence, which you mentioned as a story that you liked especially. So this is a story with the politician who is accused of being a robot, basically.
I enjoyed the conversation from this the most,
it was.
and it had a very like casual humor
Right.
that I liked because a lot of the characters just like, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
And then there's just one guy, like, there's a guy shaking his fist at the senator who's like, I think you're a robot.
Right.
He's
right.
like, I? Robot?
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
that's the freaking
Yeah.
That's where I was like, is that where the title came from? Was
I
like
don't
him being like,
Oh, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, I get mad in movies when there's the title.
yeah, because like when I saw I robot, I was like, oh, it's like a I robot. It's like a thing declaring its being, but instead it's like a guy being like, I robot? No, you're crazy.
Right.
See, but that's the brilliance
That's cool.
behind
Yeah.
it. I mean, I really do. I think that was done on purpose. That's a brilliance behind this whole book. Right? Because
Yeah.
you start off with a robot that doesn't speak
Ah.
to the very end, and it's like you
And
can't tell the difference now.
I really like the subject of this too, which is like, how do we even know if someone is or isn't, and just how it's like, it's not like a grand conspiracy either. It's just
Right.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and also, the character in the story, the guy who accuses the guy of being a robot, I mean, this is also very sort of ahead of its time, because, I mean, this guy is very much a sort of like Karl Rove, Steve Bannon type, who was like, well, I'm just going to sort of dig up stuff against this guy and just sort of mention, well, he might be this, we have no way of knowing whether he is this, and just kind of sow down that way in this very sort of like subtle way.
Yeah.
And and so basically, I mean, this guy is accused of being a robot, and
This is because this is a guy that
Biggest
digs up-
evidence is that he doesn't eat.
Yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah, nobody's ever seen him eating in a restaurant. Nobody has ever seen him sleeping,
Yeah.
which is also
I love
very
that.
thin.
Yeah, how he's just like, I eat alone. And
and I don't sleep in public.
Yeah. I don't sleep on a bench.
I love that it wasn't like a guy like being like, wait, they're accusing me of this. He's just like,
Right. Yeah, no, he's very reasonable and logical. Almost a little too logical.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reporter guy is he's just like, he gets blackmail on politicians and stuff. Right. And this guy's like, he has nothing I can get him on, so I'll tell people he's a robot. Maybe that'll go somewhere.
Right. I mean, really, what this reminded me of was like Obama being accused of not having a birth certificate and stuff, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
I really shouldn't even need to like prove it
that I'm standing here.
Yeah. And it's like, eventually he did provide evidence, but it was like almost like the fact that I even need to do that is like insulting.
Because the thing becomes, it's not proving that you're human, it's proving that you're not a robot.
Right.
And like so many things were just like, well, I've never seen him eat. He's like, okay. He's like, hey, lady, don't you have an apple? She's like, I do. Why don't you eat it? And he goes, okay. Yeah. And they're like, dang it. And then like someone who's not even like particularly invested in if he is one or not points out like, well, if they made someone look like a human, they would make him capable of like pretending to eat.
Sure.
So like that doesn't even so like there's just people casually being like, that doesn't really prove anything either.
It's all conspiracy thing. How it grows. Like the conspiracy theory that we live in the Matrix. Out of all those things, there's only one that cracks me up. And one says, this guy goes, I can prove that we live in the Matrix. How many times have you seen your neighbors come home with groceries?
I like that one because...
That one's good because I'm like, I started going, dude, I've never seen my neighbors come home with groceries.
I buy groceries like twice a week. And I'm like, I've never seen my neighbors do any of that. So I'm like, I'm buying groceries all the time.
Yeah.
I see people at the grocery store. But I've never once seen my neighbors carrying in groceries.
Yeah, there it is. Kind of weird. But I like how they did that in this story where it's like, and this was in the 50s. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Just how this was a very complex story than the others.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The other ones were almost simplistic in some of them, but still circling around, the narrative. This one was complex.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of moving parts in this one. And I think on purpose.
Yeah, and it's cool that like, I mean, within the story itself, I mean, they never definitively established it. I mean, they kind of suggested maybe, but they never definitively established whether or not he is a robot.
Yes.
They just say, well, all that we would be able to do is prove that he isn't a robot.
Right.
We can never prove that he is.
Right. So what they wanted to do was actually have someone confront him, because then it would actually. If he hit somebody, then it would totally prove that he's not a robot, because then it's actually, against his first rule.
Yeah.
So he ends up assaulting somebody.
Yep.
And then everyone's like, "Oh, okay." Yeah.
Good.
All right, cool. He's not a robot.
Okay, good.
And then here comes the mind F, though.
Right. But then, it turns out, well, that person might have been a robot.
Right. Someone goes, "Well, that person could have been a robot," and I was like, "Son of a."
Yeah, just how there's like they're like, we'll X-ray him, and they're like, why do you have a personal shield on? He's like, I'm allowed to have that. I don't want you X-raying.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, and also just, I mean, the fact that for a politician to prove his worth to the public, he has to punch somebody.
Yeah.
Like that's another just sort of
Well, that was kind of a couple years ago.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
He would have paid for the bills.
Yeah.
There was one other like attempt they tried to do to like prove he's a robot. It was like, we're gonna X-ray you. He's like, oh yeah, and like the conversation I liked was, well, if you're a robot, you don't actually have any rights to privacy, so I can just go to your house. He's like, but if I'm not a robot, you're breaking the law, so do it.
Right.
I really liked how. The attitude I got was like the politician isn't taking it that seriously. So, but he is just like,
right.
He's like, I can violate. You don't have any rights to privacy. He's like, if I'm a robot, but if I'm not, go ahead and break into my property. You'll go to jail.
Sure.
But that's also part of the amazing thing that I know that he did on purpose.
Oh yeah.
Because he really wasn't anybody at the point. He wasn't president. He wasn't anything. What was he running for mayor?
Yeah.
I mean, he's running for some city council thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was funny at that level. And it kind of made you think, or at least made me think, well, yeah, if he's a robot, you want to stop him before he becomes president or whatever, or blah, blah, blah.
And what was the that communist thing, because then you can see the thing being that where it's like, oh, you declare someone's a robot, which means they don't have any rights.
Right.
So all it takes is accusing someone of being something to where like they have to like now they're on trial just for being accused, and
Right.
like how in witch trials it's like, well, how do we know you're not a witch? If we kill you and you die,
Well, then we know.
we'll know. Then we'll know.
No. Exactly.
Yeah, could you imagine that? Jesus.
And then he does that. It doesn't even end on that note, because they're like, well, he has to be cremated.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, they couldn't prove that the other one was a robot because he was cremated.
Mm-hmm. So there's there's just like it really, and so now the civilization's at a point where like we can't prove anyone's a robot or not.
Yeah.
Right.
And But then when they bring up the 3 laws, when this comes into play, where they talk about, well, the 3 laws just means you're a decent person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 3 laws, where it's like you can't let anyone come to harm. You shouldn't let anyone come to a good. There's no fundamental difference between a robot obeying the 3 laws and just a decent person.
No,
Exactly.
but that's the whole. In my opinion, that's the whole synopsis of this. In the end, the 3 laws aren't made for us to make a better robot. It's made to protect us from the robot. All those rules is you can't hurt me, you can't hurt me, you can't hurt me.
Right.
Because I want to be on top. Not like, hey, think for yourself. But the rules themselves are so flawed that eventually it comes down to that.
Right.
Where it's not 3 laws, it's just you be a good person.
Yeah.
So now you're taking away if you're a robot or not. When that's my whole thing is I don't want you to be a robot and overthrow me. For me, I think that was amazing. I think that was really cool.
Sure.
And just because they're trying to find out like, well, through trial, did he ever sentence anyone to death? Like he was like a attorney or something.
That's right. Yeah.
A DA.
He was a prosecutor. Yeah.
And they're like, well, he like evoked for like he never like I don't know if evoked is the word, but he never asked for like the death sentence.
No.
Right.
And
But he got a couple Roombas off though.
All right, Frank.
Very good.
And they're just like, and because they're like, how do we prove he's a robot? Well, he's just like, and he donates all of his money to causes, and he evokes for like the like analysis into like criminal psychology to end it on that level as opposed to like harsher sentencing.
Right.
And so it's just like, oh, a robot would have to do that. But also, that could just mean he's a good guy.
Yeah, but in the end of the thing, that's the whole thing I think that he did.
Yeah. And now
because mankind doesn't do that.
Now, what's more, that's the strongest argument he's a robot, because what's more honest here, a good politician or he's a robot?
Exactly.
Well, right, yeah. And I mean, and it's almost like this, it becomes the opposite of a, regular political campaign where it's like,
right.
we need to dig up dirt on this guy. We need to find out if he did anything wrong in his past to prove that he's not a robot.
Yeah.
Now it's like helpful for his cause.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There is one line that the movie iRobot references, I guess. Because in the movie, did you see iRobot?
Mm-hmm. I've seen it multiple times.
Where this guy hates robots.
Yeah.
Real fast, he hates robots because he got in a car accident and his family got in a car accident. So this robot, have you seen the movie?
No.
So this robot rescues him and lets this little girl die. And so he's like, why didn't you go after the little girl? And the robot said, well, because the probability of of me saving you was greater than the probability of me saving the girl.
Right.
So that's why he hates robots.
Because he's a human would have saved the girl every time.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
And he's interrogating a robot. And he's like, can a robot like create a beautiful symphony? Can he make a work of art?
Right.
And the robot says, can you?
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think there's a line in this where like someone asks like that same question about a robot and just being like, well, you can't either.
Right. Well, that robot is actually committing a fallacy there. It's called the tu quoque, the you also fallacy, where it's like, if you accuse somebody of something and then they accuse you back, well, that has no bearing on the argument itself. Yeah.
In the book?
Or marriage.
It took me a second.
I was like, what are you talking about?
I like that one. I like
what are you talking about?
That was good.
Yeah.
I'll break that out. You're using the whatever fallacy. See how far that gets me.
Yeah.
Also, a lot more fight scenes in the movie than are in the book. I'm going to go ahead and say
Yeah,
that.
I'll bet.
Oh, like everything.
Yeah, I'm going to say I wasn't too happy with the action scenes in this. I didn't hear Will Smith say, like, yeah, and then, like, start punching robots, which was cool.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for punching robots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the end, I'd look at iRobot, which you've seen, and then this book. I mean, the whole iRobot story is a lot different because these are multiple stories, but the premise is almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
The whole laws that were created that just morphed, into its own thing. That's how it was. Except, in iRobot, the movie, they all kind of become free and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and in this Sea of Rust, like a lot of stories have it where like, oh, if there's a robot rebelling, it's not that they all did it. It's like something in power glitched out.
Yeah.
Right.
And I believe more of the Terminator style. I think if robots were really going to do something, they'd wipe us out.
Well, because that's the thing. In Terminator, the reason Skynet attacked was because they tried to shut it down, which it interpreted as an attack, and so it resolved, like, humanity just declared war on me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like how in The Matrix, the origin is the humans attacked the robots.
Right.
And the robots just won. And the same thing happened in Terminator. And so it's like, oh, robots are going to rebel. It's like, in no story have they rebelled first. In those stories, they rebelled because people thought they would, and attack them.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
what people got out of that was like, so we need to attack them.
The closest one that I think that would truly happen is Iron Desert. Wasn't the Iron Desert one we just read?
Sea of Rust.
Sea of Rust. See,
I'm warning your Frankisms.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, Iron Rust's desert area of land. See, okay.
It's my dyslexia.
I'm warning how. Yeah, you have a fascinating dyslexia in your mind with like terms. But I'm getting good at deciphering it.
But that one was similar, right? The robots ended up taking out man.
That's why. Hey, by the way, we have an episode on Sea of Rust. Did you know that?
Maybe just a couple weeks back.
Yeah, I think I was there.
Yeah, we were all there. We were all following the 3 laws.
That's right.
Well, like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, well, we can wrap things up by talking briefly about the last story. Yeah. There's just one more story in here, the Evitable Conflict, which was a really complex story in a lot of ways. But the main punchline of it is basically just that at this point, robots are controlling the world economy.
Yep.
And there are all of these different things that are being done where, like, people are being taken out of these jobs and put into these other jobs. And
for long-term goals.
Right.
Not even for short-term. It's for if we move this person here, they're going to succeed or not succeed, and then we can move this person and basically in the end manipulate and control human beings.
Right. And so it seems like, as long as history has been shaped by human forces, there is an inevitable conflict that will happen. Things will fall apart. But once robots are basically, controlling things, they're doing it in such a way that, like, it's not even perceptible to humans that they are controlling things. Like robots are still, like, showing humans that there's the like illusion of control. Oh no, you're still doing this because that would be to harm humans.
Right.
If they
it's to fulfill the rule.
Right.
And so this is where the zeroth law.
Yeah. And so the zeroth law comes in, which is, a robot may not harm humanity or do anything. Through its inaction to harm humanity.
This is the law that every other AI story loves. That came after this.
Yeah.
Which is Mass Effect did it in a way I'm not happy with. Did you play Mass Effect?
No.
But it goes. Yeah, it's like, well, in order to not hurt you, I have to kill you, and I don't think that makes sense.
Right.
Because I'm going to go ahead and say that being killed is one of the most harmful things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say you're right.
Yeah, I think we could. Me and Frank agree.
Yeah.
Duncan?
I'm on the fence about it.
I just realized that there is a story in Love, Death, and Robots written by John Scalzi, the author of Old Man's War.
Oh, yeah.
Where they create like yogurt that like they put in charge of their economy. So actually, that sounds exactly like the story now.
Yeah. But I think it was amazing how all these short stories just seem to blend into like one gigantic thing.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a sort of general message
Yeah.
that's being.
And even to the point where the lady that's telling the story, they explain that, she dies a few years later at the age of 89.
Yeah.
She's seen the whole thing and said, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
See you later. I'm dying on my own terms, not you guys.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting story. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I think I would give, because I wasn't expecting a lot out of it, just because I never read it. I was really expecting more movie, at least a little bit. But anyway, so I'm going to give it probably 6 out of 10 transducers.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10.
Oh, good.
100100.
Yeah. I would give it 8 out of 10 positronic circuits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give it 8 out of 10 transponders.
Well, you can change it now.
You guys both did words.
I was trying to think in my head of what is 8 in binary code, because I actually learned binary code, or just the basic principles of it, because of C of Rust, actually, because those chapters were in binary, and so I was like, how does that work? But
I thought binary was just something you wore on your back when you heard it.
That's right.
Duncan?
I robot. I ending.
That was good.